The Waverly family lived in a quiet suburban town, where life moved at a slow and steady pace. To neighbors and friends, they appeared to be the perfect family: devoted parents, Gideon and Alara, and their only daughter, Serafina. Together, they shared laughter and warmth, creating memories in a home that exuded love and harmony. But as the saying goes, appearances can be deceiving, and behind closed doors, the Waverly household held secrets that would soon erupt into a tragedy beyond imagination. Serafina Waverly was known as a bright and quiet young girl, focused on her studies and seemingly content with her quiet life. At 17, she had always been academically inclined, often finding solace in the pages of her books. To her teachers, she was the model student: polite, reserved, and diligent. But behind Serafina's calm exterior lay a growing storm, one that no one, not even her parents, could see brewing. She began to withdraw from those closest to her, harboring thoughts and emotions that she kept hidden from the world. As time passed, subtle cracks began to appear in the Waverly family's idyllic facade. Gideon and Alara noticed that Serafina had become distant, often retreating to her room for hours on end. Family dinners that were once filled with laughter turned into awkward silences. Concerned, her parents tried to reach out, hoping to understand what was troubling their only child. But Serafina brushed off their questions, retreating even further into herself. Little did they know, her silence concealed dark thoughts that would soon engulf them all. As the days turned into months, the tension within the Waverly household escalated. Serafina, once a loving and obedient daughter, grew increasingly defiant. Arguments began to erupt over seemingly trivial matters, her parents trying to understand where they had gone wrong. Gideon and Alara's worry turned into frustration, as they struggled to bridge the growing chasm between them and their daughter. Unbeknownst to them, Serafina had begun to view her parents as the source of all her discontent, nurturing a resentment that was now consuming her. With each passing day, Serafina's thoughts grew darker, her mind fixating on a sinister idea that she kept hidden from everyone around her. In the solitude of her room, she began to scribble in a journal, venting her frustrations and articulating a plan that seemed almost unfathomable. The girl who had once found joy in small, simple moments now felt nothing but a cold sense of detachment. Her hatred festered, and in her eyes the love her parents had always shown her was now just a suffocating reminder of the control she believed they had over her. On a particularly stormy night, Serafina's pent-up anger finally reached its breaking point. The air was thick with tension as thunder echoed through the quiet halls of the Waverly home. Sitting alone in the darkness, Serafina felt the weight of her emotions pressing down on her like a crushing wave. In that moment, a decision crystallized within her, a decision that, once made, could never be undone. Her mind was set, and in the shadows, she began to lay out the plans for what would become a night of unimaginable horror. As the night wore on, Serafina moved quietly through the house, every step deliberate and controlled. She knew exactly what she needed to do, and in her mind, there was no room for hesitation. She slipped into the kitchen, her fingers grazing the handle of a knife, the cold steel a chilling reminder of the finality of her plan. With a calm that bordered on eerie, Serafina went about her preparations, each step bringing her closer to the moment that would forever alter the Waverly family's legacy. As the clock struck midnight, the silence in the Waverly home was broken by the faintest creak of floorboards. Serafina approached her parents' bedroom, her heart beating in a steady rhythm that seemed almost out of place given the gravity of what she was about to do. She stood there, on the threshold, the weight of her anger propelling her forward. The last traces of innocence fell away as she stepped inside, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. In that moment, Serafina became something unrecognizable, her humanity slipping away with every step she took. By morning, the once peaceful Waverly home had become a crime scene, its halls echoing with the solemn footsteps of detectives and officers. News of the tragedy spread quickly, and the neighborhood was left in shock. The police were baffled, struggling to understand how a young girl could be driven to commit such a heinous act. Serafina, however, remained calm, her expression eerily devoid of remorse. As she was led away in handcuffs, neighbors and friends could only look on, trying to reconcile the sweet, quiet girl they thought they knew with the monster who had shattered their community's peace. In the days that followed, detectives began piecing together the events that led to the horrifying night at the Waverly home. They combed through evidence, interviewed friends, and pored over Serafina's journal entries, trying to understand the thoughts that drove her to such violence. The deeper they dug, the more they realized how well she had hidden her true feelings. The girl they found in those pages was not the quiet, obedient daughter everyone had believed her to be, but rather a calculating individual who had meticulously planned every step of her deadly act. In their search for answers, detectives stumbled upon Serafina's journal, a chilling relic of her dark inner world. Page after page, they uncovered disturbing thoughts and elaborate plans, meticulously documented in her own handwriting. As they read through the entries, the horror of her intentions became increasingly clear. Her journal was filled with calculated notes on her parents' routines, details on how to minimize evidence, and chilling justifications for her actions. The journal revealed a side of Serafina that no one had ever seen: a cold, methodical mind bent on destruction. As news of the crime spread, friends and classmates were left reeling in disbelief. Those who had known Serafina struggled to reconcile the sweet girl they'd seen in the hallways with the calculated killer described in the police reports. Her closest friends recalled moments of subtle anger, hints of resentment, but nothing that could have foreshadowed the violent acts she had committed. As they shared their memories, it became painfully clear just how well Serafina had hidden her true self behind a mask of innocence. Gideon and Alara Waverly had always been loving parents, dedicated to giving Serafina the best life they could. Friends and neighbors described them as caring and involved, often attending school events and cheering on their daughter from the sidelines. But while their love for Serafina was undeniable, some noted that there had been tension over the years, arguments over her grades, disagreements about her friends. Yet no one could have imagined that these small familial disputes would culminate in such a horrifying tragedy. In the sterile confines of an interrogation room, Serafina sat across from detectives, her face a mask of calm indifference. She answered their questions with a chilling detachment, recounting the events of that night as if she were describing a mundane task. Detectives were unnerved by her lack of remorse, her flat, almost robotic tone as she admitted to everything. The girl before them seemed devoid of empathy, a stark contrast to the innocent image she had projected for so long. It became clear that the Serafina they had in front of them was nothing like the girl her parents had raised. As investigators delved into the forensic evidence, they discovered disturbing details that painted a clearer picture of that fateful night. The fingerprints, blood splatter, and DNA left behind told a tale of cold-blooded calculation. Serafina had meticulously planned each step, leaving behind as little evidence as possible, but enough remained to confirm the brutality of her actions. It was as if she wanted the world to understand just how thoroughly she had thought it through, her final testament to a twisted sense of control. News of the Waverly tragedy quickly spread, sparking a media frenzy that rocked the quiet town of Maplewood. Reporters flocked to the scene, eager to uncover every detail of the grisly crime. Headlines splashed across newspapers and television screens, each one more sensational than the last. The story of the seemingly perfect daughter who turned on her own parents became a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind even the most innocent of facades. And as the story unfolded, the world watched in shock, struggling to make sense of the horrifying events that had shattered this once peaceful family. As part of the investigation, Serafina was evaluated by a team of psychiatrists who sought to uncover the psychological forces driving her actions. In their sessions, they probed her mind, uncovering layers of resentment, detachment, and a disturbing lack of empathy. They noted her absence of remorse and her apparent inability to comprehend the gravity of her actions. Their findings painted a portrait of a young girl disconnected from reality, her emotions buried beneath a cold and calculating exterior. The diagnosis was clear: Serafina Waverly was not the average teenager she appeared to be. Neighbors who had known the Waverly family for years spoke to reporters, their faces etched with disbelief. They shared memories of the kind and loving family they had known, recounting moments of shared laughter and community events. Many expressed sorrow, unable to reconcile the tragedy with the peaceful lives they had witnessed. To them, the Waverlys had seemed like the ideal family, and the horrific acts committed within their home were a stark reminder that sometimes, even the closest bonds can conceal unimaginable darkness. As investigators continued to unravel the case, they searched desperately for answers, piecing together Serafina's life, one fragment at a time. They pored over her writings, spoke to former friends, and delved into her digital footprint. Each new discovery painted a clearer picture of a mind twisted by anger and resentment, a child who had somehow lost her way. For those working the case, it became a haunting reminder of the fragility of the human psyche and the lengths to which a person could go when consumed by a desire for control. The trial of Serafina Waverly captivated the nation, as prosecutors and defense attorneys argued over the tragic events that had claimed 2 innocent lives. In the courtroom, she sat silently, showing little reaction as the charges were read. Friends, family, and neighbors watched in stunned silence, their eyes fixed on the young girl who had shattered the lives of those closest to her. And as the evidence was presented, the world struggled to understand how such a violent act could have come from someone so young, a girl whose face still bore the innocent features of childhood. As the trial unfolded, witnesses took the stand one by one, each recounting their memories of Serafina and her family. Friends described a bright, cheerful girl who had shown no signs of the darkness within. Teachers painted a picture of an intelligent and driven student. But as the testimonies continued, a darker side of Serafina emerged. Some classmates mentioned her temper, her quick flashes of anger, while others recalled the chilling way she had sometimes spoken of her family. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the pieces of the puzzle came together, revealing a portrait of a young girl at war with herself and those around her. The prosecution painted a damning picture of Serafina, describing her as a cold, calculated killer who had meticulously planned the murder of her parents. They argued that her journal, filled with detailed notes and plans, was evidence of premeditation. Her chilling lack of remorse, they claimed, was proof that she had acted out of a twisted desire for control. As the prosecutor's words echoed through the courtroom, it became clear that they sought not just to punish her, but to send a message about the gravity of her actions and the depth of her betrayal. In stark contrast, the defense sought to portray Serafina as a troubled young girl who had been pushed to the brink by emotional turmoil. They argued that she was not a monster, but a child caught in a whirlwind of pain and confusion. Her lawyers described a life of struggle, hinting at family tensions and unspoken traumas that had led her to this dark place. They urged the jury to look beyond the surface and see the broken girl behind the cold mask, pleading for compassion in the face of tragedy. In a rare and chilling moment, Serafina took the stand, her voice eerily calm as she recounted the events of that night. She spoke with a detachment that left the courtroom stunned, describing her actions in a matter-of-fact tone. She offered no apologies, no explanations, just a hauntingly detailed account of what she had done. For those in the courtroom, it was a moment that would be seared into their memories forever. As she spoke, it became clear that the girl before them was far beyond their understanding, her motives a mystery even to herself. The jury deliberated for hours, grappling with the weight of Serafina's actions and the haunting details of the crime. As they reviewed the evidence, arguments erupted over her mental state, her motives, and the appropriate punishment for a crime so horrific. Each juror wrestled with their own conscience, torn between their duty to deliver justice and their empathy for the young girl whose life had taken such a tragic turn. In that room, they held her fate in their hands, knowing that their decision would forever alter the course of her life. When the verdict was finally read, the courtroom was silent, every eye fixed on Serafina as she stood to hear her fate. The words echoed through the room, carrying with them the weight of the jury's decision. Guilty on all counts. The judge's gavel fell, marking the end of a harrowing chapter in the lives of all involved. For Serafina, it was the beginning of a new reality, one where her actions had forever shattered the world she once knew. And for the town of Maplewood, it was a moment of closure, but also one of profound loss. The case sparked a nationwide debate, with media outlets and the public divided over Serafina's punishment. Some called for leniency, arguing that she was a child caught in a nightmare of her own making. Others demanded the harshest penalties, seeing her as a dangerous individual with no hope of redemption. Social media exploded with opinions, hashtags, and heated discussions, each side voicing their thoughts on what justice truly meant. The town of Maplewood found itself at the center of a storm, as people across the country grappled with the question of what should be done with a young girl who had committed such a heinous crime. In the wake of the trial, experts weighed in on the case, offering insights into the psychology of a young killer. Psychologists and criminologists dissected Serafina's actions, analyzing her lack of remorse and the cold precision of her crime. They spoke of personality disorders, traumatic childhoods, and the complexities of adolescent minds pushed to the brink. For the public, it was a glimpse into a world few understood, a dark reminder of the fragile line between innocence and violence, and the forces that can push even the youngest among us to unimaginable acts. As the dust settled and the media moved on, those who had known Serafina were left to ponder what had gone wrong. They remembered the girl who had once played in their backyards, who had smiled and laughed like any other child. Her life had been filled with so much promise, yet somewhere along the way, something had shifted, leading her down a path of darkness. For many, it was a painful reminder that tragedy can strike in even the most unexpected places, forever changing the lives of those it touches. Years later, the town of Maplewood still bears the scars of the Waverly tragedy. The house where Serafina once lived remains empty, a silent reminder of the lives that were lost and the innocence that was shattered. Memorials for Gideon and Alara stand as tributes to the family they once were, and the town carries on, forever marked by the events of that fateful night. Serafina's story serves as a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lie hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when it will finally reveal itself. Following the trial, Serafina was sent to a juvenile detention facility, a stark new reality for a girl who once roamed the halls of Maplewood High. Her days were now spent in silence, surrounded by the walls that marked the boundaries of her life. Guards watched her every move, and the once vibrant teenager became a shadow of her former self. In the solitude of her cell, she was left alone with her thoughts, the weight of her actions bearing down on her with every passing day. Her future was uncertain, and for Serafina, this was only the beginning of a lifetime of consequences. The community of Maplewood gathered to mourn the loss of Gideon and Alara, their presence missed by friends, neighbors, and loved ones. In a candlelight vigil, the townspeople shared stories and memories, their voices trembling with emotion. For them, the tragedy was a personal loss, a heartbreaking reminder that even the strongest family bonds can be shattered in an instant. As they lit candles in memory of the couple, they struggled to make sense of what had happened, to understand how such a horrific act could have taken place in their peaceful town. As the years passed, the media periodically revisited Serafina's case, using it as a cautionary tale of teenage crime and the hidden darkness within. Documentaries and articles chronicled the events, each one presenting a new angle, a fresh perspective on the tragedy. For viewers, it was a chilling reminder of the fragility of the human psyche and the seemingly ordinary lives that could hold such dark secrets. The story of Serafina Waverly became a symbol of something much larger, a tale of lost innocence and the darkness that lies within us all. In the silence of her cell, Serafina began to write letters, pouring her thoughts onto paper in an attempt to understand the person she had become. She addressed them to no one in particular, detailing her regrets, her anger, and the complex emotions that swirled within her. These letters became her only outlet, a silent conversation with herself as she tried to piece together the fragments of her shattered mind. For Serafina, it was a small act of redemption, a way to confront the darkness she had unleashed upon her family. The former friends of Serafina were left to reflect on the girl they had known, haunted by the memories of her laughter, her smile, and the moments they had shared. They recounted stories of school dances, summer afternoons, and long conversations, struggling to reconcile the friend they remembered with the person she had become. Some spoke of missed signs, hints of anger that they had dismissed at the time. For them, the tragedy served as a painful reminder that sometimes the people we think we know best can carry the darkest secrets. The town of Maplewood would never be the same, the shadow of the Waverly tragedy forever etched into its history. The once peaceful streets were now tinged with memories of loss and pain, the reminders of a family torn apart by violence. The town's residents moved forward, but the sense of safety they had once known was gone, replaced by an awareness of the darkness that could lurk within any home. For Maplewood, Serafina's story would be told for generations, a reminder of the tragic events that had forever changed the town's quiet streets. Years after her sentencing, some of Serafina's letters from detention were leaked to the public, sparking a renewed wave of interest in her story. The letters revealed a young girl consumed by regret, torn apart by the weight of her actions. In her words, she expressed a profound sadness, a longing for the family she had lost. The public was divided. Some saw her words as evidence of remorse, while others dismissed them as manipulative. For those who read the letters, they served as a haunting glimpse into the mind of a young girl who had destroyed her own family, now left to confront her own demons. For those who had known and loved Gideon and Alara, the tragedy was an open wound that time could never fully heal. Friends and family gathered at their gravesite each year, laying flowers and whispering words of remembrance. They spoke of the laughter that once filled the Waverly home, the joy that Serafina had once brought to their lives. And though they grieved for the couple they had lost, they also mourned for the young girl who had destroyed her own family, left alone to live with the consequences of her actions. As the years went by, Serafina spent her days in silence, reflecting on the life she had once known, the choices she had made, and the family she had lost. Alone in her cell, she came to understand the depth of the pain she had inflicted, the emptiness left behind by her actions. She faced a lifetime of solitude, a never-ending reminder of the consequences of her choices. For Serafina, there was no escape, no way to undo what had been done. She was left with only her memories, the haunting legacy of a life forever marked by tragedy. Maplewood continued on, its residents slowly moving forward, but the memory of the Waverly tragedy remained, a scar on the heart of the town. The once vibrant home where Serafina had grown up stood empty, a silent testament to the violence that had shattered its walls. People spoke in hushed tones of the girl who had taken her parents' lives, her story a reminder of the darkness that can hide within even the most peaceful of places. And though the years passed, the memory of that night lingered, a reminder of the fragility of innocence and the depths to which a soul can descend. The Waverly home, once filled with laughter, remained vacant, a ghostly reminder of the family that once lived there. Dust gathered on old photographs, furniture sat untouched, and the walls seemed to whisper of the love that had turned to tragedy. The townspeople avoided the house, some swearing they could feel an eerie presence if they ventured too close. For Maplewood, it was a chilling reminder that darkness can exist just below the surface, unseen until it erupts with devastating force. The story of the Waverleys lingered, a haunting memory that seemed woven into the very fabric of the town. Years after her crime, Serafina faced her final sentencing. As the judge pronounced her fate, the weight of her actions bore down on her. Life behind bars would be her new reality, the consequences of a single, horrific night that had shattered so many lives. She had made her choice, and now she would live with it until the end of her days. For the people of Maplewood, justice had been served, but for Serafina, it was the beginning of a long journey into darkness, marked by regret, remorse, and the pain of the lives she had destroyed. As time passed, the older residents of Maplewood reflected on the tragedy that had shaken their quiet town. They spoke of the Waverly family with sadness, recounting memories of Gideon's kindness, Alara's gentle nature, and Serafina's vibrant youth. For them, the tragedy was a reminder of the fragility of life and the hidden struggles that often go unseen. The town's elders shared stories of their own youth, their voices filled with sorrow as they contemplated the fate of the Waverly family. They understood that while time could heal wounds, the scars would remain forever. Years after her conviction, Serafina's story resurfaced in a true crime book detailing the events that led to the Waverly tragedy. The book included excerpts from her letters, offering a rare glimpse into the mind of the young girl who had taken her parents' lives. The readers were captivated by the haunting story, drawn into the darkness that had consumed a once promising life. For the public, it was a chilling reminder of the unpredictable nature of the human mind and the horrors that can lie hidden within the most ordinary lives. Despite countless interviews, psychological evaluations, and in-depth analysis, the true motive behind Serafina's actions remained a mystery. Experts debated the reasons for her horrific crime, pointing to possible signs of mental illness, suppressed anger, or a deep-seated resentment. But for all the theories, no one could fully explain why a young girl would commit such an unthinkable act. The mystery of Serafina's mind became a source of endless speculation, a reminder of the complexities of the human psyche and the darkness that can reside within. Extended family members reflected on Serafina's childhood, sharing memories of family gatherings, holiday celebrations, and the close bond she had once shared with her parents. They spoke of a little girl full of life, a child who had been loved and cherished. For them, the tragedy was a painful reminder of the fragility of family ties and the ways in which even the strongest bonds can be broken. They mourned not only the loss of Gideon and Alara, but also the bright future that had once seemed so certain for Serafina. At Maplewood High, Serafina's absence was a constant reminder of the tragedy that had forever altered the lives of her classmates. Her empty chair symbolized a life cut short, a future forever lost. Teachers and students alike struggled to make sense of what had happened, haunted by memories of the girl who had once sat among them. The once ordinary classroom was now tinged with sadness, a place where echoes of the past mingled with the hopes and dreams of the present. For Maplewood High, the tragedy served as a stark reminder of the unseen struggles that can exist behind even the brightest smiles. The case of Serafina Waverly sparked public debate on the issues of justice, redemption, and the potential for rehabilitation. People gathered in town halls, sharing their views on whether she deserved a second chance, or if her crime was too great to forgive. The debate grew heated, with some arguing that even the darkest souls could find redemption, while others insisted that Serafina's actions were unforgivable. For the public, it was a complex moral question, a reminder of the difficult choices faced by a society that seeks both justice and compassion. Years later, a new generation of students at Maplewood High learned the story of Serafina Waverly, her tale becoming a cautionary lesson on the dangers of hidden anger and the importance of mental health. Teachers spoke of the tragedy with somber voices, using it as a way to encourage empathy, understanding, and open communication. For the students, the story was a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lie hidden in even the most familiar places. Serafina's story became a part of the school's history, a lesson learned by each new class that walked its halls. In the end, the Waverly home remained silent, a ghostly monument to a family that once was. The memories of Gideon, Alara, and Serafina lingered in the quiet rooms, a chilling reminder of the darkness that had shattered their lives. For the town of Maplewood, the tragedy became a part of their collective memory, an unbreakable silence that hung heavy in the air. And as the sun set over the empty home, the story of the Waverly family became a haunting echo, a reminder of the hidden shadows that can dwell within any heart, and the tragic consequences that can unfold when those shadows are left unchecked.